forget all you know about podcasts. We welcome you to an experience uniquely different. Please join us for our coverage of all entertainment on the fringe of society. The candles are lit, the lights are down low. It is now time to welcome our host as he steps up to the pulpit. The sacrifice has been prepared for the midnight black mass.
Ghastly greetings, groovy ghoulies, and welcome to another edition of the Midnight Black Mass. I am your host, the Reverend Dan Wilson, the maniacal minister of the occult, and the leader of the Devil's Rejects, alongside my broadcast partner, a man who whipped another man's ass last night so bad that his buddies begged him to stop, and he didn't stop. He kept going, and he kept going till he was good and done, and then he tossed him out like yesterday's garbage. I'm talking about a man who's got so much at this day and hour to be praised for, both as his role as a matchmaker at Empire Wrestling and his time there as a competitor. And then last night, technically not coming out of retirement, but kind of, sort of, at least stepping in the ring in an unsanctioned fight against Ryan Vega. And of course, we had the Devil's Rejects reunion. It was a glorious night for Empire's farewell, Tooth and Nail 5. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Man, it's good to be here. It's good to be alive, barely. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, we're only about 13, 14 hours removed from Tooth and Nail, and man, it was a hell of a night. It was crazy, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna try to fit it all in, but I don't know if we can in one episode. We're gonna do the best we can, though.
It's gonna be a challenge. It is definitely gonna be a challenge, but that is the theme of the evening tonight. We are talking Tooth and Nail 5 here as we stream live on the Beyond Ringside Network. Also, that's every Sunday at 11 p.m., beyondringside.com, and of course on the Potty Humor Network, youtube.com/pottyhumor. Subscribe. Go to iTunes, type in Potty Humor, PODDYHUMOR, or the Stitcher app. You can download right there on your smartphone. You have that wherever you go, and you can take the Midnight Black Mass with you and listen to it on demand at your leisure. And please, if you get a chance, leave us a review. That helps the magical mystery computer numbers in the iTunes with their algorithm, and it helps get us more listeners. So we'd appreciate that as well. And we got a lot of great feedback last night on the show, or from last week's show, which was a big rundown of the Tooth and Nail card is what finished it. And, of course, it happened, and I want to address something right here off the top. I did tell a minor fib. Actually, it wasn't a fib at all. I said that I gave my notice to Empire as an announcer and an executive. I did not say anything about being a manager, and it was an unsanctioned fight. So I didn't really lie, but if you knew the Devil's Rejects were going to get back together, you wouldn't have gone apeshit like you did last night, and you wouldn't have busted out your lighters and your cell phones when they played the Motley Crue tribute video, and we wouldn't have had that awesome special moment that will go down in space and time as historic. So don't blame me. I didn't lie per se.
No, I mean, definitely not. No, there were no lies. There wasn't any trickery. We didn't pull the wool over anyone's eyes. I told Ryan Vega that I knew that he would bring his friends in the White Rose and that I would bring mine. He assumed, a lot of people assumed, maybe I meant a Kyle Matthews and maybe I meant other people that did not like the White Rose and what they stood for, guys like Johnny Viper and Livewire Entertainment, people like that. And I'm sure they would have been there if I asked them to be a part of it. But I did exactly what I said I was going to do, and I brought my friends. And I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, you said that I whipped a man's ass, and I mean, that Ron Vega's a slimy little shit. But boy, he whipped my ass too, man. He hits hard. He's not the biggest guy, man, but he packs a punch. And even when he used a roll of quarters or $50, whatever he had to knock me out, and I got a gash on my head. It looks like I got a little mini vagina going. We might have a fuck or fail of me trying to fuck my own forehead with this this hole that this roll of coins put in my head. But man, he whipped me like a dog. Used my belt, and my back looks like Kunta Kinte and Roots, maybe a step below. And he beat the hell out of me, man. But I told him if he didn't kill me, I wouldn't stop. And he damn near did, but I didn't stop. And in the end, I think we did a good job. And you guys were there to help neutralize the White Rose, and I definitely appreciate that. And man, the support of the fans and the we tried to give them a little special surprise entrance for the Rejects reunion, which has been well over 2 years since the Devil's Rejects in any way, shape, or form were together at Empire. And really, you could say anywhere. I mean, I know you've traveled and managed Tank along the way as a solo, but that's, as far as branching out to any other Rejects, that hasn't happened. So it was special for the fans, but it was even more special for us. And I was extremely grateful and happy. And then afterwards, this surprise tribute video, and the fans had the cell phones and the lighters, and man, it was special.
It was the last time that anybody'd seen the Rejects proper in over 2 years. I'd managed some guys here and there as a guest spot. I helped Azrael and Strychnine win the NWA Anarchy Tag Team titles a few years ago. I mostly would travel with Tank as a manager. And, it's an exclusive club. They just don't grow rejects on trees. It's a special mindset. It's a special level of heart and determination, and also just a total not give a fuck attitude, and being able to back all of that up physically and mentally. And there's just very few men with that level of commitment. And so you, of course, you said you were proud to be as selected by me last night in private conversation. Man, let me tell you, you fit the fucking bill, and you delivered the goods. You survived these guys waterboarding you. You came out there and you fought, putting the meaning of the word tooth and nail in the match, beating the hell out of this guy. For everybody to see, and they wanted more. I'm kind of like, you know me, when I get carried away, I like to see the blood flow. But I'm kind of glad you showed the restraint that you did, because if you listened to the audience, you would have fucking killed him.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, as you could definitely tell, probably the third or fourth punch that was thrown in that fight, I absolutely broke my hand. I broke my right hand, which I am right-handed, and I'm not a classically trained fighter or boxer. So needless to say, shots I'm throwing with my left would not have the same effect. And I was kicking and punching and headbutting, and which wasn't the wisest move. But I'm from what I can gather, Ryan Vega walked away with a broke nose. I don't know the severity, obviously. You don't really care, but I know his nose was broken at some point. Yeah, so I mean, I did. I think we went far, and I didn't. I don't know if I may have went over the line, but I didn't go. I didn't go over the line like these guys, but I let them know that they fucked with the wrong people for too long, and I think he'll think twice about. I would hope anybody would think twice, because there's always been this kind of thing of guys wanting to try me and wanting to goad me into matches or to come out of retirement and stuff. You know, obviously he went a lot further than anyone has, but people just want to test you. And I have no interest in being in that position. I don't want to take away spotlight from the great wrestlers that are young and that are extremely athletic and have great careers ahead of them. I want them to have a chance to shine. I don't even want to be there to take up spotlight from them. Uh, but I couldn't ignore the things that Vega and his White Rose had done and were continuing to do. And when I thought I refuse to wrestle this man, I refuse to be a liar and go back on my word. But I'll fight him, and if he shows up and if he's ready to fight, we'll fight. And by God, we did.
Well, you're safely removed enough from the business now in terms of having that desire to compete. Some guys just can't give it up, and I don't blame them. I sometimes fear that one day I'll be one of them. The old saying is that wrestlers don't retire. You just stop getting booked. So you went out arguably in your prime, and that's not a bad place to go. And as they found out last night, because of that, it wasn't because you physically had to retire. It was because you lost a stipulation. So you were perfectly ready physically to whip his ass, and that's what happened. But it's not something you want to do. You've had this great career that you fostered as an administrative figure, as a matchmaker, and it's something you found a great talent for, and you've gotten more accolades and press and write-ups, etc., for that than you did in your wrestling career. And, we always thought you were a great wrestler, but maybe a little underappreciated, but not at all in the administrative role. So you'd be a fool not to do that, where you can make the same money and not destroy your body and keep your mind active. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed it. And when being in the business myself and helping myself, I only help myself, and I was able to help others along the way, here and there, and help out with people here and there. You know, uh, I got Kyle Matthews, which he would have done perfect without ever meeting me. But just getting to help him, and just a lot of other guys that come along. Rufus Black, we've been in the business pretty much the same amount of time, but I think we helped each other grow, and uh, things such as that. But in this role, I've got to help so many young talent grow and get better and improve. And I just really want to leave the wrestling business, especially in our little section of the world, better than when we found it almost 20 years ago. And I think, guys like me and you and Tank and a lot of us that have been around a little bit, I think we've kind of done that.
I think the track record at Empire speaks for it. I think the track record other places that we've been would speak for it. But don't listen to us, because I don't like to sit around and put myself over unless it's necessary. Listen to other people and they'll tell you. Empire Wrestling, what a run. Tooth and Nail 5, what an event. Absolutely sold out, far beyond capacity. They had to actually start turning people away after intermission. Just an unbelievable event from start to finish. 5 hours almost of wrestling for those fans as a send-off for all their support. It was one of the most rabid crowds I've ever been in front of and ever seen, and the card delivered the goods from top to bottom. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that was the only thing. And I didn't get to see everything. I was very focused. I wanted to make sure that I didn't get my ass handed to me too much, and that I delivered the goods, and I wanted to lead by example and things such as that. But what I got to what I got to see was just amazing. And and there's no reports, and I haven't spoke to people, and I just know my feelings about how maybe it was too much and too long of a show. But then I thought about it. Really, there was a 30-minute pre-show, and then the show was about 3.5. You're looking at right about 4 hours, a little over 4 hours of wrestling. That's the length of WrestleMania, and we are not the WWE, and we do not have the production and the things that WrestleMania has. But that was our WrestleMania. That event, tooth and nail, is our biggest event of the year. And not to mention that, this was the biggest tooth and nail in history. It was the Empire's last stand in that building, possibly ever. So really, when you think about it, I don't think we went too long. I don't think we gave them too much. We could have maybe started earlier to get people out, before 11:45, 11:30, whatever it was. But when you have a set time that people are accustomed to, when you bump it up, when you make these adjustments, it really throws people off. And we could have run the risk of some of those earlier matches, which were phenomenal, not having the crowd in there to see them because they're accustomed to coming in at 8 p.m. I mean, that's my take on it. Our events are always very tight and out there in a timely manner, and we don't want to keep people out too long. But this was the last ride, and we delivered. And the crowd wasn't falling asleep. They weren't sitting on their hands. They were up for 9 matches and one kick-ass brawl the whole night. And I wouldn't change anything.
Of course, the big story coming out of the main event was new Empire Heavyweight Champion going into this new era of mystery, though some more plans were announced by your dear hosts here in the first ever pro wrestling post-credits deep sleeper scene. So, a la the Avengers in the Marvel Universe, we pop up at the end of the show after everybody's filing out and say, wait, why are you still here? What the hell? And, of course, announce that things might get a little crazy from the heat this summer, and that Empire does have plans to continue, just not there in Rossville. So they were very happy with that. But the main event, Empire Heavyweight Championship, tough fucking spot. They were in almost a Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario, because they had to follow all of that. 4+ hours, and they'd seen everything. Had a tables match, had the crazy fight with you guys, had the huge brawl with Gunnar Miller and Logan Alvey against Rush and Drew Delight. You had the 30-minute Iron Man match with Kyle Matthews and Chris Gaines, and so much more. They had to follow everything but the kitchen sink, and they delivered the goods to such a level. And the audience was still up for the match and supportive of Joey, and then, of course, what a moment when Joey Lynch, the hometown hero from the beginning here, takes home the Empire Heavyweight Championship by defeating Bobby Hayes, the longtime veteran. What a match.
Yeah, that was an amazing moment. And those guys, like you said, those guys were behind the 8 ball from the start, because the insiders of pro wrestling and people that have very strong opinions about stuff, they think that some of these big high profile matches should main event your shows. And I know there's sometimes arguments for it, but I really, really like to see a heavyweight title match last on a card. It should be the most important thing. It should come above blood feuds and brawls and all of those type of things, personal issues. And I don't care what the stipulations are. If you're just going to go out there with 2 men that are going to fight to see who is the better man. Joey Lynch and Bobby Hayes didn't hate each other. They didn't have disrespect for each other. I think they had a lot of respect for each other. I know Joey respected Bobby Hayes, and after that match, Bobby Hayes respected Joey Lynch because he extended his hand, shook his hand, and handed him the title. It's a sight that, quite frankly, shocked me to see, but it happened. And like you said, those guys, not that I had any doubt, but went out there and had a hell of a wrestling match, and hard fought, hard hitting. And Joey Lynch actually got the submission win over the Butcher Bobby Hayes, which is unheard of. I've never seen that happen. And I've seen Bobby Hayes around for well over 16 years. So it was impressive. And then all of the all of Joey Lynch's friends and his family. They got in the ring and they were celebrating, and his estranged brother that, if you follow Empire Wrestling, you know the history between Matt Fortune and Joey Lynch, and you know what's been happening recently with Matt trying to regain that trust. And he come out, and the Baniac, their very, very odd little brother, gets Matt Fortune in the ring, and he tries to shake Joey's hands again, and the crowd's just, please, Joey, just forgive him, shake his hand. He's your brother. And Joey gives him that hug, and man, that, you talk about emotion. You talk about what this sport and this business is built on. It was so great to see, so great to see. And then, as like you said, we won't go too much into it, but as fans are filing out, as the house lights are on, and the wrestlers in the ring are kind of just saying goodbye to the fans and things, the video with the rejects pops up, and we let them know that things in the summer can get hot and people can go crazy from the heat, which is, of course, our summer mega event. And man, when I said the words "crazy from the heat," that place, even though a lot of them were gone and they missed it because they didn't stay to the end like you're supposed to do, they exploded because they know when Empire Wrestling says we're going to deliver, we do. And they were begging for more. They didn't want us to be gone forever. So when I said that, and they had the hopes of another event and more events in the future, man, they just exploded, and it was a great moment. And then Joey got to had his son in the ring with the belt, and it was a great sight to see.
Oh yeah, like his parents got in there and everything, and it was a real emotional moment, and everybody was on their feet, and it was just one of those great moments in professional wrestling. And of course, the crowd closed things out with a "Thank you, Empire" chant. Like, just one of those things where you couldn't feel more accomplished. That you finally get that realization that the people that you've been selling this to believe in it as much as you do, and that's a damn good feeling.
Yes, it is. And I mean, it had to be the proudest moment of my life for sure. That the whole event, the whole night, the whole run of Empire, at least, especially to this point, has been amazing. And we had some great video production in the pre-show and some various vignettes during the show, as we always do. And there was a history of Empire video that was made that was that was beyond top notch.
And we'll post that on the Potty Humor page just as soon as it's available.
Yeah, and the whole thing just, it makes me so proud. But last night specifically, it was as close to perfect as I think you can get, especially for an independent wrestling promotion in a little small building off the beaten path in a little town in Georgia. I mean, it was. I mean, I hate to suck my own dick, but it's got to get sucked by somebody.
But it ain't gonna suck itself.
It ain't gonna suck itself, because that event was as close to as perfect as I've ever been a part of, and I've been a part of some great things from some great people.
Yeah, and the evening got started off right. Of course, in the pre-show action, we saw Brandon Bailey make his in-ring debut against Rookie of the Year Chase Jordan. And I gotta say, young Mr. Bailey, been a great official, but now looking to pursue a wrestling career. And I was pretty impressed.
Those kids, dude, they're gonna be the future, especially in this area. They can branch out if they choose to, but both with great high school amateur wrestling careers and accomplishments behind them. And you talk about wrestling, man. These guys were wrestling. I mean, like, on the mat. I'm surprised we didn't see a referee's position. We should have had the guy officialing there with a whistle. These guys were exchanging holds and reversals and counters. And, Brandon Bailey doesn't have the experience that Chase Jordan does. And even though it's only a year under his belt, that's still a lot of experience when you're facing somebody in their first match. And he went for a double leg, and he lifted him up, and Chase Jordan caught him with that small package. And the pro ranks are a little different than the amateur ranks, and he got him and he got the victory. But it was a hell of a match, man, and the crowd was excited for it. And I was glad to, I was glad to see it and have it on the card. And Brandon Bailey is I consider him the hardest working man in the company. There's been nights where he's had to referee every match. He would come back covered in sweat and drenched and looking rough, and I'd feel bad for him, man. But he deserved to have one match in that building. He deserved to have his career start there, and I'm glad that that happened.
Yeah, and I predict big things for both of those guys if they keep their heads on their shoulders. Just part of my job in this industry for so long has been evaluating talent, trying to see who is a potential star, what can you work with, because especially in the Wild Side Anarchy era, a big portion of what we did there was try to develop guys to go get jobs, and we kind of tried to continue the spirit of that, even though, we didn't have any arrangement with anybody, and we didn't put anybody necessarily in a job, though Corey Hollis certainly had some nice things to say about our help in his development into where he's getting. But it's just one of those, you take that philosophy with you as far as developing talent. And so I like to always try to have an eye for future talent and guys that might be able to contribute something to this sport, because there's those guys and then there's the guys that are just playing, and you got to weed those guys out. And I can guarantee you, after seeing those two guys last night in that pre-show event, yeah, Brandon Bailey, Chase Jordan, they've got very bright futures.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to see what happens with them. And then we had, like we mentioned before, a History of Empire video. Uh, we see the Baniac reflecting before that, and he stumbled upon the live segment Midnight Black Mass old set, and as we would later see in the show, he conducted his own Midnight Black Mass in the locker room area. It was unique, to say the least. I guess we shouldn't just leave that stuff laying around, but he tried to have a couple guests, and he was got drunk on Yoo-Hoo, had way too much sugar, ended up naked at some point wearing Muji Bear as a thong. That's a whole nother issue, but that was some fun stuff. And the videos, the opening video for the show and the history package, and they put together a history package with Ryan Vega goading me into this fight. Really top-notch stuff. And then we kick off the show with the number one contenders match for the Empire Heavyweight title, which is obviously a mystery, and we knew that going in. But until we are officially out of business, we have to continue as if we're not. And Ace, Rockwell, and Tank opened that show, man, and they told everybody on that card, if you want to steal the show, you're going to have to work your ass off, because we're here to fight. And man, they had a hell of a match.
Jesus. Like, my jaw hurts from just watching that match. I didn't get to see it last night. I heard it. I was in my preparation mode while they were in the ring, so I was back there getting the old war paint on and getting in that devilish frame of mind. And but I could hear the crowd just swelling, and it's a stiff match when 3/4 of the reaction of the audience is oh, oh, ooh, like it wasn't like pops, like your traditional go Ricky go, like fucking. It's just like this collective grimace from all nearly 500 people in attendance.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and they a great match. They got a lot of history together, and it's not an upset, but I really think that if you would have asked the audience who they thought was going to win, I think they would have gave the nod to Ace Rockwell. And Tank kind of proved everybody, like, this old dog ain't ready to give it up just yet, man. And he brought the fight, and he got the win over Ace Rockwell. And luckily there's still that respect there, as we all figured and assumed there would be. But this was a hard-hitting match and a great way to kick off the show. I mean, if that was a sign of anything to come, it's no wonder that we had such a great show.
Yeah, nobody was like excited to follow that. I can promise you. Even with all the stipulations and gimmicks that we had lined up afterwards, which there were a lot of, so a lot of opportunities for excitement there, but there was nobody who was looking forward to following that. Just a hell of a match. I just went back and watched it like 20 minutes before we recorded this, so it's fresh in my mind, and I loved it. I thought they really brought it, and of course, with them, two very untraditional baby faces. So two guys who are wildly popular, but not for the reasons most people are. Ace Rockwell, very unorthodox offense. Of course, he's got that sympathy factor, like when he's getting the hell beat out of him, women and children and men, because he's legitimately tough, respond to that, and they want to get behind him and see him come back and whip an ass. And then Tank, of course, is just the ultimate destructor, and he's been everybody's favorite ass kicker for a long time. And so just to see that combination of them just letting it go, it was not like catch cans, shaking hands. They shook hands and hugged when it was over because they're longtime friends, and there was no giant feud going into this. It's just some competitive rivalry, and damn it to hell was the in-ring competitive in that match. They left nothing on the table.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't get to see all of it, but I saw a good bit. And like you said, they were beating the hell out of each other, bringing the fight, hard hitting. They were holding nothing back. It was impressive. And then later, a little bit later, Tank approached Bobby Hayes, the then Empire champion, and he told him, because those guys you talk about history, those guys have history, and the battles that between those two men are insane. And he basically told Bobby Hayes, he said, you better hope one of two things happen. You better hope Empire closes for good, or you lose that title to Joey Lynch, because I'm coming for you. And, we saw that Bobby Hayes did lose the title indeed, but if he wouldn't have, he would have had a whole new chapter in the Tank Hayes story. That is that story is huge. That book is quite the novel.
Yeah, and one has to wonder, is the novel closed now because of that? Possibly. Who knows what's going to happen with this crazy from the heat business. Like, this is an unprecedented thing for a wrestling promotion that's been on a weekly schedule. So now a giant break is going to occur, and then Crazy from the Heat, whenever form it manifests over the summertime, are some of these guys even still going to be available? We do know all contractual agreements to Empire ended as of last night, so all new agreements are having to be drawn up. And there's a lot of promotions that are vying for some of those guys, and there's a lot of promotions that are vying even for you, probably. So, it's an interesting time for them. When it comes back, what form is it going to take? I tend to think that you're going to still see the majority, because there's just a love in the good majority of the top performers there. There's just a love for the crew, the product, the vision that you have and they have, that is all shared. So I think it'll be pretty similar to what we're used to, but again, we're talking about a number of months. Anything could happen. Any of these guys could get opportunities. New guys could come in. Lots of question marks, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely. It is a big mystery at this point. It's a mystery for me. That's not a thing to keep people in suspense. It is really up in the air. I think everybody needs a break. Everybody needs to recharge the batteries, because man, half a decade with, and we haven't had a revolving door. We've had some talent come and go, but as far as production and that side of things, it's been the same crew for over half a decade. And if you think that that's not tiring and exhausting, you got another thing coming. So recharge these batteries and see what we can do, and take Empire on the road and get some new faces there, and hopefully some old faces follow us. I'm sure they will. But we got to try. We got to keep this thing going, because after last night, they were begging for it. They were begging for more, and I want to give them more.
Oh, it's time, there'll be more time, And the great thing about it, there's been a bit of a lax. I won't say lax. It's just shoestring indie wrestling problems. You've got 4 people trying to do the job of 30. And so the video department has been slow. And I have been pressuring some of them for a while to try to get that material out there because there's a demand. So now in the break, there's time to get that stuff together. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of the backlogged video content that you may have not have seen at all from Empire's finally going to be seeing the light of day. So there's plenty to whet your appetite over the spring.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just Tooth and Nail alone, if we could get that out and let people see that, maybe people that weren't there. Because I told people, if you weren't at that event, you should be waking up this morning. You need to be kicking yourself in the ass. And, you know, there were some people that left before maybe the final 2 matches because of the time. I mean, we did get out well before midnight. It's not like we went till 2 or 3 in the morning, but that for an Empire show, that is late. For a lot of shitty indie wrestling promotions, that's not late because they go out there and they just fiddle fart around, take a lot of intermissions, and do all this shit and keep you there all night. But so we did have some people leaving, and that's understandable. You know, you have Sunday's church day for a lot of people. Maybe people had to work. Young kids, and I hate that happened, and I apologize for that. But I think there's a lot of people that should see as much as we can show them from last night, and know that we're not fucking around. When we tell you we're coming to your town and we're going to put on a wrestling show and you're going to get your money's worth, you're going to get your money's worth.
Yeah, almost to the level that no other indie promotion at this level is doing. I mean, certainly you've got your larger independent groups that travel around, your Ring of Honors of the world. Almost can you even consider them an indie anymore? I don't know. But at least on this level, I mean, to quote the great Larry Goodman himself, you're never going to see production like this. The way they present the product is unique in its own right, plus all of the great in-ring talent and the storytelling, etc. We know how to put on a big event, and Tooth and Nail was certainly that. What were some of your other favorite matches from the event?
I don't know about a favorite match. I mean, I didn't see anything, and I didn't hear anything, and I didn't hear of anything that wasn't top notch, which is what I expected. And that's not bullshit. If I thought something shit the bed, we would talk about it. But every match, the second match was, a grudge match between Matt Fortune, his former manager Steve Dave, basically turning all allegiance to the hit for hire Bobby Moore. And these guys were in a war, and Bobby Moore, with the help of Steve Dave, and loaded up an elbow pad and knocked Matt Fortune's dick in the dirt. Got the win there, but that was a war. That was a brawl, and I'm sure that both of those men woke up feeling it this morning, because those guys hit hard too, and especially that Bobby Moore, man. He's become a beast. He's a guy that people need to really look out for too. He's been around a while. People are finally starting to take notice, but this guy's a serious pro wrestler, and I mean, Matt Fortune's right there with him, not taking anything away from him. But, like you saw, he's wild. He'll do whatever it takes. He's got that slimy Steve Dave backing him now. So, I mean, I don't know if we could say that would be over. Matt Fortune was out there happy at the end for his brother Joey, but he can't be happy about that loss on the biggest night in Empire's history. He walked out with the big loss. So I don't think he's going to take that too kindly.
No, and I think, you've got, with the Lynch Brother Union potential tag team situation there, you never know who Steve Dave's going to convince. I still think he probably pays these guys to let him stand around out there with them so he can feel cool, but that's a whole nother debate.
Well, until Steve Dave is hanging out with fucking the Fonz, he ain't never gonna be fucking cool. I don't care who he's standing around with. But I mean
You
that
couldn't
match.
cryogenically freeze that motherfucker, and he still wouldn't be cool.
That's right. He's a slimy little shit, but I'll tell you what, man. I mean, he's got a good history going. He's been a professional wrestling manager for just a few years, and the small clientele he's had have been some heavy hitters in the business for sure. So we'll see what happens with that, and see if he maybe wants to take on some new clients. And like you said, the whole Lynch brother, all three of them are kind of on the same page, and so be interesting to see, especially with Joey being the Empire Heavyweight Champion. I'm sure Bobby Moore, of course, Bobby Hayes as well, will have his sights set on that. And then the third contest was another little surprise, or a big surprise, with the other White Rose members, Chip Day and KT and Keith Hamill, taking on Johnny Viper, and he brought two surprise partners of his own, and it turned out to be a little Illuminati reunion with the Collins brothers, Brandon and Jason Collins, and man, the crowd was excited to see that. Viper comes out on the stage by himself and throws up the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati hand sign, and man, the people instantly, they were with it. They knew, and that was a big moment. And the White Rose, they stole a victory there, but I think it was kind of a moral victory for the Illuminati. The fans were extremely happy to see them, and they were cheated out of the win. But that match was amazing. The crowd was all into that, and those guys were tearing into each other from the time the bell rang to the time it was over. So that was a hell of a match too. And I always love 6-man tag action. Is always exciting. That's always a great thing to see on a wrestling card, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, love a good 6-man, and was excited to see those guys back. We certainly had our issues with them over the years, but as those rivalries of old times settle, you often gain a bit of respect from the guys that gave you the roughest time, and that's kind of what's happened there with those guys. We still don't really like each other, but there's a bit of a mutual respect there. Last time we saw Jason Collins was at the Scenic City Invitational, which was a co-promoted event by Empire Wrestling. So he was just there as a tournament competitor. But with the whole Illuminati reuniting and Cyrus the Destroyer coming back just a few weeks ago, one has to wonder if they might be trying to factor themselves into the return plans of Empire.
Yeah, I haven't heard that because, I told Johnny Viper he could have any two partners he wanted. It didn't affect me. I didn't care, and I would love to see the White Rose get their ass handed to them. So I was in the dark about that. The Cyrus thing, I was obviously given notice by Logan Alvey. He chose Cyrus as his opponent, so I knew that pretty much the day before, but I was fine with that as well as a matchmaker. So it'll be interesting to see there, because that Viper, man, he's a clever little shit too. He's always got stuff up his sleeve.
Always, yeah. You look at that guy and you think, well, that guy looks like a bag of fucking turds. And so there's no way he's a threat. But he would surprise you. He put us through a lot of hell masterminding that feud with the Illuminati, and he's given you a lot of hell over the years as a matchmaker. And just because the fans like him now doesn't mean he's necessarily changed his ways.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think he's earned the fans' respect, and set sights on people that maybe they hate a little more than him, and they do appreciate him, they do love him. But yeah, he's slippery. He's got shit planned, and his mind's always working. So there's no telling. He's devious. I would say the word devious.
Yeah, that's an apt description. So big return there. What followed that? Would that have been the Iron Man match?
Yeah, definitely, I believe so. 30 minutes, which man, people underestimate, man. That's a long time to be wrestling, and that's not a fight that's going back and forth. You're trying to win. You're trying to end the match in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you just can't do it. And you go 30. it was set no matter what happened to these guys, they were going to wrestle for 30 minutes. An Iron Man match, most pinfalls, Kyle Matthews versus Chris Gans. Chris Gans trying to prove a point, wanting to be a fighting junior heavyweight champion. He finally kind of had a big break as a singles competitor. This is another guy horribly underrated in independent wrestling in the Southeast. Amazing talent. Everyone knows the accolades of Kyle Matthews, of course. And he wanted to face the best. He wanted to face the best at the biggest event he could. And he wanted to basically come down and he wanted to beat the best as much as he could. He knew getting one fluke, anybody can win a match any night. Anybody can get that fluke win. It doesn't mean you're the best. So he wanted to beat Kyle Matthews as many times as he could, and with the final score of 3-2, and legitimately that last pinfall occurred with 1 second left. Chris Gans got the 3 count with 1 second left in remaining time, so it didn't kick into overtime. And this match was amazing and hard fought, man. And man, especially Kyle Matthews got a first fall within like the first minute of the match, got a surprise win on Chris Gans. But man, the action in the last 10 minutes of this match, oh man, these guys were killing each other. Looks like Gans had broken his neck at some point and hit Kyle with a super Hurricane Rana from the top rope. Just insane action. These guys were, fighting hard for 30 minutes of action nonstop.
That match was so good, dude. God, and Gans, of course, he's had confidence issues for years, and I think he's finally getting over them. Of course, now, no slouch in some recent efforts he's put on, some clinics in the ring, and then becoming Empire Junior Heavyweight Champion in that ladder match. But this was his coming out party. I think it's safe to say after this outing, this effort against Kyle Matthews and a big victory, you're going to see Chris Gans really become the star we know he can be. And it's funny because he came up to me before the card and he's like, I'm going to fight hard. I'm really going to try to beat Kyle, but I just really am afraid I'm going to go out here and shit the bed, and it's just going to be terrible, and I, got to go 30 minutes either way, and what if he kicks my ass and the match sucks? And I said, well, Kyle Matthews could wrestle a broomstick for 30 minutes, and it would still be a good match because he's that fucking good. So if you can't have a good match with Kyle Matthews, you're not as good as a broomstick. And I think that was just a little extra motivation because I kind of have to razz Gans and ride him a little bit to really piss him off and get him to show that passion. But as you know, it works.
Yeah, it does. Like you said, some self-confidence issues, but that happens to everybody. I think at some point, but especially when you're young in the business, like he still is. He has been around, starting as a referee and changing into a professional wrestler. He's been around a while, but he's still relatively young, and a lot of time in tag team competition with various partners over the years. But I like to think that I have a pretty good eye for talent, and I could go on record and basically saying it's hard to pick, and I love to watch a lot of guys, but Chris Gans is pound for pound my favorite wrestler on the Empire roster.
You've always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. But I think it's safe to say we'll see a lot more of Chris Gans breaking out all over the place after that moment at Empire Wrestling. And then after that, of course, went to intermission. Fans got to meet and greet with many of the stars of Empire. A lot of merchandise for sale, a lot of clearance sales, being that it was the final event there, trying to get rid of a lot of stuff. And then it was back with the tag team tables match, which settled a big war between the Hatriots and Livewire Entertainment. But the biggest thing coming out of that matchup, of course, congratulations to Livewire Entertainment for retaining the titles. But the entrance, they had their own WrestleMania entrance. Why don't you tell them about it?
That was Yeah, that was pretty cool. There was a full drum set up on the stage during the intermission, and I look out for a second, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" Like, no one asked me like, "Hey, can we bring a drum set to ringside in this tables match?" So next thing I know, right as intermission's ending, uh, referee Cameron Cox, Corey Cox's little brother, um, and strong supporter of Olaf the Berserker over the past few months, just hits a pretty intense drum solo for the crowd and gets the crowd excited. I mean, haven't heard a whole lot from Cameron over the past few months, other than uh, hanging out with his brother and Mr. Sports Entertainment and singing the praises of his Russian friend Olaf the Berserker. But this kid was wailing on those drums, man, and getting the crowd excited and into it. And I'm like, okay, well, this just turned into a rock concert. And then he introduces his brother from another mother, Mr. Sports Entertainment, and his brother from the same mother, Livewire Corey Cox, and he brought him out. And man, it was amazing. I mean, you just don't see stuff like that at independent wrestling shows. Never.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. You know, I'm a big metal fan anyway. He was out there. Like, he was like throwing some intros from famous songs. I heard a little Run to the Hills and heard some other stuff. I really dug it. It was really badass.
And then these guys proceeded to beat the hell out of each other, and three of the four competitors went through tables with both members of the Hatriots and Corey Cox. Corey Cox was power bombed through two tables. Oh man, viciously. I mean, he was kind of out at it after that. Mr. Sports Entertainment had to kind of fight off both Hatriots, and he ended up choke slamming Jason Hampton off the stage through a table. And man, things were pretty scary there for a minute, because the Hatriots bring out a big bag, and the fans immediately start chanting thumbtacks, thumbtacks. And these guys bring out two huge bottles of lighter fluid and matchbooks and proceed to just unload two full bottles of lighter fluid on this table. And obviously people are losing their mind, and I'm debating at this point, I need to stop this. And then I'm thinking, I can't really just go out there and stop this match, and I'm focused on what's coming later. And luckily, Mr. Sports Entertainment fought this off, and the matches were lit, and he punches Jason Hampton in the face. Jason Hampton drops the matches on the table, and luckily, in the 2 seconds from his hand to the table, the matches actually went out, and the table did not catch on fire. And I mean, and you hear that and you think, oh, well, that sounds horrible. We wanted to see fire, but you kind of don't, because that it was enough that it would have killed somebody. And the fans, they did not get the fire, and they got Mr. Sports Entertainment putting Hampton through the table, winning the match for his team, retaining the tag team champions, and the crowd, they went crazy. They went wild. So it didn't hurt the show that this didn't happen. Not that it was supposed to happen to begin with, because it was a tables match, not a flaming tables match. But I'm glad that didn't happen, because it was way over the line. It was way too much.
I've seen too much bad shit happen due to fire in professional wrestling. I saw Terry Knight, old veteran from when I first broke into the business, a great worker, uh, get set literally on fire. Like, he's running around and he's still on fire, and the Cole twins had to tackle him to put him out. And then they sprayed him with a fucking fire extinguisher, and he had like third-degree burns on his back. And then Azrael, when during the Devil's Rejects run in Anarchy, was gonna do a flaming kick to somebody, so he rips the lighter fluid and he pours it down. And of course, it gets all over his pants, and he doesn't know it. So when he lights it, like, his whole self goes up in flames. And Tempers, his tag team partner at the time, had to single leg him and put him down to put the fire out. So probably for the best of everyone involved that didn't happen, and congrats to the Livewire Entertainment.
Yeah, hard fought win, and then we see the Baniac, and this is where he was um, on a sugar high. Said he drank a sixer of Yoo-Hoos, and he was running around borderline naked, and he was scheduled to be next. But before that match could take place, that's when Ryan Vega and the White Rose went to the ring, and I was supposed to go out. I was going to go out later and call him out and see if he wanted to fight like a man. And I didn't hear everything he said, but basically he wasn't going to wait for me to call him out. He was going to fight on his time, and thought that my ego was so big that I wanted to call him out at the end of the show and be main event one last time. And he called us out, and well, we showed up, and we've talked about that before, and we gave the crowd a special entrance, a real heavy metal feel, the way the Rejects do it, and um, they didn't know what was going on, but when that first quarter, that Devil's Rejects music hit that they haven't heard in over 2 years, they were with it, and that huge curtain dropped, and we were standing there with the reunited Rufus Black, the Strong Style Psycho Tank, the returning Reverend, and myself, full Devil's Rejects lineup. Man, it was electric, and it was one of the greatest moments of one of the greatest moments of my career, and it happened after my career, so it was incredibly special.
Yeah, I know we've elaborated on it, but it was a tremendous night. It was a tremendous moment. One of those career highlights for sure. Thank you, everyone that supported us for that 5 year run. I never thought at the onset of the Devil's Rejects back in 2005 we would ever be fan favorites to the level that we got a tribute video, lighters and flashlights and cell phones, and a chant and a standing ovation and all of that.
And people in tears.
Oh yeah, they were crying. Oh, they were boo-hooing. Like, just blows my mind, man. It's still such a mind fuck for me.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. It is crazy to think about, but it was special. And after that, we had the hair versus fur match, which they sold raffle tickets for. And it's my understanding that uh, Lionel Lucas Lazarus made a little bit of scratch off that, which is kind of weird. I can't imagine someone wanting to help him shave the Muji Bear, but man, the Baniac, he racked up selling those raffle tickets for a fan to help him cut the hair of Lionel Lucas Lazarus if he was victorious. And as we saw the week before, I made him split that money with me, so I got me a nice little chunk of change going out the last time at Empire. But man, Lamar Phillips got the upper hand on the Baniac and was really, man, putting a hurting on him, and it looked like it was over. And the Baniac got a little bit of advantage, and despite Lionel Lucas Lazarus blocking the 619 attempt on Lamar Phillips and taking the blow for his friend, Baniac still pulled off that upset victory. And man, it was late in the evening, and they had already seen so much. But man, that crowd was electric, and that Lionel Lucas Lazarus got the haircut of a lifetime, and one lucky fan got to help with it. It was electric.
Oh my god, he looked like a fucking Saint Bernard that had just walked into a lawnmower.
That's a pretty good description. And that was a hell of a contest. And that Baniac, man, him and the Muji Bear, they have just become so popular and so loved by the Empire fans. He's a handful is an understatement. He is something, man, and he's given you, but especially me, man. He's given me headaches for the last year. Oh, he's been too much to handle. But when on all is said and done, man, he's a lovable little shit, and he's good to have around. He'll get on your last nerve, and he's hard to deal with. And as we saw, he get that sugar in him, and good lord, I think that's the only reason he won the match. To be honest with you, he had all that sugar running through his veins. But he's really become something special in Empire Wrestling.
An Empire original, man. An Empire original, a guy who's been there for years. And who would have thought that getting dropped on his head and knocking his marbles completely the rest of the way loose would be what caused him to break out and become a star?
Yeah, and then the old appearance of his childhood best friend, the Muji Bear, uh, and the people just took to it, and he's truly special in a good way.
Yeah. And so, of course, we let off talking about the main event, but we still really haven't talked. We'll end the episode today real quick, just talking about the hellacious brawl between the Shadows of the Empire, Drew Delight and Rush. Two guys who are pretty underrated as wrestlers, honestly. I mean, and Rush is a guy who's been around for years and was always just fairly a middle of the road guy, not too great, not too bad. But in the recent years in Empire, the level of talent surrounding him lit a fire in that guy. And he became one of the nastiest, toughest, but also most impressive stars that Empire built. And then teaming up with his brother in law, Drew Delight, who has been a long time great wrestler in the area, but also, of course, the owner and founder of Empire Wrestling, to take on the two hot young up-and-comers, Logan Alvey and Gunnar Miller. And it's not even fair to really call them up-and-comers anymore. They've come up, and they've came, and they've saw, and they've whipped ass, as they did. But I'm sure they're feeling the fight today also, because Drew and Rush put up one hell of one.
Yeah, this was we talk about a brawl and a fight, and people that weren't there may think that this was kind of a situation like myself and Ryan Vega were involved in, but this was a completely different animal, and we really did a good job of. I wanted it to be man on one, face to face, and we pretty much got that, and with you guys helping clear out the White Rose and kept it within the confines of the ring. These guys, man, tore the building down, which we'll get to. But these guys went all around, fighting in the audience, beating the hell out of each other. And Drew Delight and Rush may have lost that match, but they took it to Gunnar Miller and Logan Alvey. Those two kids knew they were in a fight when it was over. Uh, it was one of the damnedest things I've ever seen. Violent, thumbtacks, there were thumbtacks put down the trunks of Gunnar Miller, and then super kick right to his dick, for lack of a better term. A
To the
super kick.
abject horror of all of the single females in
Oh
attendance.
man, and probably some of the single males. To be honest with you, that Gunnar Miller's a good-looking kid, and man, I don't know if there'll be any baby Millers running around anytime soon, but this was the damnedest thing. And Gunnar Miller, uh, he did what's known as the coast to coast, a big drop kick, or something we've never seen him do from one side of the ring to the other. And you see that done by guys, and it's always impressive. But this motherfucker could have went 5, 6 more feet. He kicked somebody's fucking head off. And I mean, Rush and Drew Light, they did bring the fight. Like I said, Rush slammed one of the sliding huge doors, solid steel doors. And you know how heavy those are on the chest of Logan Alvey, and the fact that these guys survived at all and were able to pull out the win's insane. And um, with one of the big results being the far wall where the fans sit. Uh, that one of the structured supports of the building, Gunnar Miller and Logan Alvey picked their opponents up and they ran them into the wall, but they didn't run them into the wall so much as through the wall, because that wall came fucking tumbling down. And there were guys back there that I think the Livewire Entertainment and the Baniac and a couple other, Johnny Viper. They were back there just kind of talking and
John Cougar
conversing.
Mellencamp.
Yeah, and they they fucking had a surprise. The wall almost fell on them and killed them. And man, this was the most shocking thing I think we've ever seen in the building.
Yeah, they were like, well, this is the last event here, and this is no holds barred, so they could use anything and everything, and they did, including completely destroying the arena. So it went out with a bang. And
And
of
I and I
course,
and I want to, I'll say something about these guys in a second, but um, we've talked about various things before on the podcast with wrestling maneuvers. not being the important part of wrestling and wrestling matches. It's good to have a set uh, moves and holds that you like to break out and use to wear down your opponent and get victories, but they're not things that need to be focused on. You got to have a lot more determination and heart and uh, cardiovascular conditioning and things such as that. It's much more important than just the moves. And even though people like to see exciting moves done, they're second to a lot of other things. But the finishing maneuver of this match was about the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Uh, I mean, it on paper it may not sound like much, but it was a sight to behold. 100% shot. My jaw dropped when Logan Alvey picked up Drew Delight for the what he's called the Adamantium Slam, which most wrestling fans would know as a rock bottom. And when he launched Drew Delight up in the air, Gunnar Miller came out of that corner and speared Drew Delight in midair as the Adamantium Slam was happening. So it was a spear and a rock bottom in one maneuver. And Drew Delight didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of kicking out of that after all of the other ass whipping that had been dealt out. It was a finishing maneuver like I've never seen before, and I don't see how anybody could ever overcome that and kick out before a 3 count. It was insane to see.
What a night. What a run. 5 years of Empire Wrestling at the same location. And now we take a break. And we come back in the summertime at a new location. Or is it locations for Crazy from the Heat? So let's see what happens. The retrospective on Empire is far from over. We're just wrapping up part 1 of that this week, which is the Tooth and Nail 5 recap. And next week we're going to be back talking about the history of Empire Wrestling and also talking to some of the competitors who have been involved and their thoughts on their runs as well. Anything else you want to add before we sign off, my brother?
No, man, I think we covered it. I was going to back up some of what you said about Drew Delight and Rush, how they're just, they're amazing performers. They're fucking assholes, 100%. But those guys, man, have grown over the years into top-notch professional wrestlers that people may not hold in that light sometimes when they talk about some guys in that conversation. But they definitely are. And that Gunnar Miller and Logan Alvey, man, I mean, we've seen a lot from them at Empire, and we know that Gunnar Miller has had discussions with NXT and Triple H. I mean, that's just as honest as we can be. Like, that's happened. And Logan Alvey, arguably one of the most impressive things in Empire history, ending the 18-month title reign of Sean Tempers at Tooth and Nail 4. Those guys are impressive. They have the body, they have the look, they have the physical gifts, and they're athletic, and they're great guys, great human beings. Getting to know them over the years, the future is so bright for those guys, as it is for a lot of Empire talent. And we discussed the main event; it was amazing. It'll be interesting to see what happens coming out of that. I'm sure Bobby Hayes isn't going to roll over and just let the Empire Heavyweight title go without a fight. So when we come back, it's going to be a completely interesting set of circumstances to see what goes forward. But if we don't come back, last night's event was the absolute greatest send-off that I think a promotion could ever have in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I would put it up there with like the ECW farewell events and things like that. As far as emotional level, obviously it didn't have this industry-wide ramification that these things did, but at least for our level and our region, it was just one of those things that had to be seen to believe. And I begged you, if you know me personally, I begged you, I said, hey, you ever want to see me do this wrestling stuff, this is going to be, I can't tell you why, but this is the night you want to be here. This is probably the last time you're going to see me around town for a while. I've got some other bookings, but I'm not a local talent. I don't just go do any old promotion here in the town I live in. It just so happened that Empire was of the level of quality that I hold to my standard, and also right here close to where I actually live. So I told these fucking people, I said, You're gonna regret it if you miss it. And of course, so many comments. You get, oh, I had this going on, I had that going on, I couldn't make it. Well, tough shit, cause you missed one of the greatest nights of wrestling that I have ever been a part of in 17 years, and they wouldn't have let you in the building anyway, cause we sold that motherfucker out.
That's damn straight. And hopefully we're gonna continue to sell some shit out.
That would be fucking amazing.
Absolutely.
So, without further ado, then, we will go ahead and get out of here, but we'll be back next week talking more Empire Wrestling, talking a little hardcore hell, and a whole lot more. So join us, please, and as always, keep one foot in the gutter, one fist in the gold, and for the Devil's Rejects reunion and in the end of the Empire, keep 4 horns in the air. This is the Rev for Andrew Alexander, and we're out.
This has been a production of the Potty Humor Network. Find us online at youtube.com/pottyhumor or subscribe to us weekly and never miss an episode by searching Potty Humor on iTunes or Stitcher. Thank you for listening, and good night.